Hello and welcome to another Meet the Profit First Professional. And today I have with me Rebecca. So Rebecca, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to everybody, please.
Oh, hi, Tim. So I'm Rebecca Brown. I've got a business called Simplify Performance, but in a nutshell, I am a profit coach.
Excellent. Thanks, Rebecca. And so what would be great would be to understand a little bit about you and your background, perhaps. What have you done in the past and then what led you to running your own business?
Okay, so my background is I'm a mathematician. I've got a degree in maths and a PhD in maths, actually. And I worked in the oil industry for 20 odd years. I started life as a reservoir engineer. And then I moved over into the finance and control function. So I worked very much with the business, so help them understand the performance of the particular asset I was working on at the time. And I loved that. I did it within a few different oil companies, an American company, a couple of UK, British-based companies as well. So effectively, I was like the FD. I sat on the leadership team for the region. I would always think I would be the MD's right-hand woman, if you like. So I had got the data, all the information, and I absolutely loved that element of the job. I loved working with the guys to say, actually, this is what you need to do to hit your budget for this year, or this is what it could look like in a few years' time. I loved all that. And then about maybe 6 years ago now, I left that. And when I left, I knew that I wanted to do three things. So I've been based in Aberdeen all that time. I wanted to live in Edinburgh, do something with property and work with small businesses. And so the first thing I tackled was property. So I started to build a property portfolio for myself, buy-to-let portfolio. And during that process, me being me, straight away started doing myself monthly reports, measuring how I was doing and everything. And it really dawned on me that what I'd learned through the oil industry, I could apply to absolutely anything. So you think exploring for oil is very different to finding a buy-to-let property. Actually, it's not really. It's got 5 or 6 key steps and it's similar, and you can do that for any business. So I then decided I would set up my own business as a business coach. So I did that, and I started working with small businesses. I worked with a lot of solopreneurs, I guess, people just them in the business. And I did 2 or 3 years, actually, I worked on a program that supported young entrepreneurs. So they would have support for 12 months. They would meet with me every 2 weeks. We would go through what you want to achieve for the business. I was almost an accountability person, really, for them for every 2 weeks. We would do some numbers, obviously, because I absolutely adore numbers. If they needed help with marketing, I'd point them in a different direction. So I did that for about 2 or 3 years, loved it. Probably worked with, 30, 40 different businesses during that time. From people making cakes, making jewellery, distillers, all sorts of things. And that stopped then. It was on a contract and that stopped. But during that time, even though I loved that because it combined the coaching and being a mom, you almost put a virtual arm around them at times, was that I missed my numbers. So during that time, someone I'd met on a network during lockdown actually had said, "Oh, have you read Profit First?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh, I would read it." Suggested a couple of books, Profit First being one of them. So I read it, just like devoured it, kept going, probably read it in a weekend. Straight away implemented it for the business I was just setting up. So it was really early days for my business. Set that up. And I also set it up for my buy-to-let portfolio business. So I've got it running in both of them. And at the time I thought, I wonder if you could get accredited. How do you get accreditation? Because obviously in the book it says, click here and you can go and find an accredited Profit First professional. But I didn't do anything with it, but it was always in the back of my mind. And then a couple of years later, as this contract was finishing, I thought, maybe now's the time. So I sort of Googled that, and I think it was just after you'd taken on the license, you and Duncan had got the license, Tim, so it was so timely. and I love it. But I've always done it in my personal life. So I tell everyone, we have a joke in our house, if you want to buy something, my husband says, I've got a column for that. So I've always done it in a spreadsheet, but effectively the same principle. So that is the thing. Have we got a column? I still do it now. He still asks the question. So it just rung true with me. It just rung with me it really, if you cut me in half, that's how I run my finances.
Yeah, and I think that's the key point, isn't it? A lot of people actually do an element of profit first in a certain way, but actually when you actually apply the principles in the full sort of concept, it makes a big difference, because the behavior side of it is moving the money out of sight, out of mind, isn't it? Which is the clever part, really.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we applied it probably 6 years ago now. We had a goal to move to Edinburgh. So I said I wanted to do two things. I've done my business, done my profit. The other was to move to Edinburgh.
Yep.
And we wanted to do that. And we sat and we did a 5-year plan. And if we saved this month per month, blah, blah, blah. And literally, that's what we did. It went into a separate account, out of sight. And I'm sitting in Edinburgh today, not Aberdeen.
Excellent, excellent. That's amazing, isn't it, to hear? So that's almost kind of the special purpose pot scenario, isn't it? Where you've got a real reason to put that money to one side, because you've got a real purpose that you want to achieve, and in 5 years you've achieved it. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it also shows that profit first works in business, but it also works in your personal life as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I've worked with someone who we've been doing it in their business, and that's going well. And I think what it's done is emphasise or shine a light on actually they're not as organised in their personal stuff. So they're now saying, well, all right, how do I apply it to my personal life? Yeah. And that's one of the things I like about it. I think if you learn this, it can just spread. So if you do it in your personal life and you teach your kids about it and they mention it, it's good budgeting. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. It filters down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that you've said that I'd like to kind of explore a little bit more, and if that's okay, and then we'll come back to where you're at now and who you're working with. We can talk about that after. So you mentioned about buy-to-let, and that you implemented profit first within that business. So that's actually quite specific, isn't it? There's probably a different way of doing things. So could you share something around that, about why it's different and how you've made that work for you?
So on the buy-to-let, so how I struggled. I had to think about how to apply it. So quite a few landlords out there will have done some property training. There are plenty of companies that offer it, and they do say sometimes they say 10%. The one I went on at the time said, put 10% away for repair and maintenance. So you get your money in. If you're paying an agent, you pay your agent, and then you've got the money for your repair and maintenance. Keep that in a pot. So that's sort of, it's along the same principles, but not full-blown, if you like. But what I do, and I found works really well for me, is for those of you that have read Profit First or haven't, so you've got your revenue, then you've got your maths and typically. I would say costs you cannot avoid in order for you to run your business. And then you take that off and you get real revenue, or you might call it gross profit if you're looking at your P&L, I guess. And so I say that's like above the line before I start allocating anything. And for above the line for my property business, I put my mortgages, because that's how I run the business. I've got to fund the mortgage. I put my letting agent fees, because I never actually get that money. It stopped at source, if you like. And I also personally put my landlord insurance in there, but that's, you could decide where. And then it's the rest of it that I split, really. And then I'm into repair and maintenance. I do repair and maintenance. I do obviously my profit. I do my tax. I do my own compensation. I also, for me, have a pot for refinancing, because at some point you're going to have to refinance. You might choose to pay the fee rather than add it onto the mortgage. You probably have to go and have another survey. And then I have an overhead pot as well for other stuff like your registration on the landlord registry and all that sort of stuff, and your operating costs like your recertification and so on. So it works really well, I think, because I think when you've got a number of properties, you'll have a few months, everything runs perfectly smoothly. Or you're getting all the rent through, they're not having to do any repairs. And then you'll just have a bout of one thing after another. And you'll think, am I getting anything? But because you've got that pot, it's not stressful.
Yeah, so you might not realize what you've just done, but you've actually demonstrated in great detail
Right.
the massive advantage of somebody who has a buy-to-let property now and wants to implement profit first. You've just highlighted the massive advantage of working with someone like you as a profit first professional that has experience of working in this area, as opposed to reading the book, scratching your head and trying to implement profit first on your own and probably not getting anywhere, getting a little bit confused about what to do. So that's amazing how you actually operate profit first within that business.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily how it's written, but as I quite often say to people, that Profit First is a great book. It's a strategy, it's behavior based, but it's not a textbook. It's not a manual for people to follow. It's kind of opening a door to this new idea, and then if you seek help from a Profit First professional, you can take your business and whatever that is to a whole new level. And I think you've just demonstrated that your expertise in that field, and now with combining it with the Profit First strategies, is really high level. So anybody should be looking to work with you if they've got buy-to-let properties, I would suggest.
Yeah. I mean, I think with all my clients, I try to adapt it to what they need.
Yeah.
So my first question is always, what do you want for your business? And for someone who wants to take a monthly income, they know in 3 or 4 years they'll stop and that's it. Maybe they're a life coach. They're not building business to sell. It's the ongoing income and that's about it. They'll stop. It's probably quite straightforward. You might have someone else who says, actually, I want to develop a product, but I need X amount before I can even get the loan to do the rest. So you'd have a pot for that. Some clients really like personal development, so they have a pot for that. So I really like to understand what's important and what they need, and then we'll just adapt it so it works for them.
Yeah. And that's the proactive nature, isn't it? Always looking ahead to see what you can achieve with them. The refinancing part of the buy-to-let part, again, you're looking ahead, you're thinking, what's going to happen in the future? What am I going to need to do? Where am I going to need to have to pay for stuff in the future? Can I cover that now and build up a pot so that it's okay when I get to that point?
I mean, one of the things I do as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to how I work with my clients, but it's probably because of my planning background, I always look forward with the client. And I build them up, I say a model, it's an Excel spreadsheet, for those of you that don't, model scares it, but I look forward and I say, all right, if this is what it looks like, what does it look like for your pots if we allocate them these percentages? And I think that's really important because people set up their businesses and they think, I'm going to take this much money out of it, and they rarely are when they come to us for a start. But if you can demonstrate, if we do this, this and this, in a year's time, your take will look like that. And then, I mean, I was able to say to a client not that long ago, I said, so is that really more what you set the business up for, to take that out? And she went, oh yeah. So I think it's almost that carrot and showing, well, here's a path to get there.
Yeah, because quite often people set up in business to have freedom, but actually end up being an employee of their own business in effect, and they just get used to taking a salary or the same amount of money out, whichever that looks like, of course, the same amount of money each month, and that's all they work towards. So with Profit First, obviously, we changed that behaviour as well. So you kind of touched on talking about how you work with your clients. It feels like naturally we should go into that conversation if you'd like to. What can someone expect when they start working with you? What does it look like?
What does it look like? So I really want to understand their business, as I say, what they want. And I don't mind what it is. It doesn't matter as long as I really know what it is they really want, rather than what they think they should want, but what they really want. So I like that. As I say, I build a model for them so they can see what it can look like. And I think that takes stress out for people. So if they want to bring on staff, we can say, well, all right, if we build a pot for building on staff, when will we be there? If, well, all right, how can we get costs down? Or maybe you need to increase your prices. I like to break down people's income into income streams. So they might have 3 or 4 income streams for their business. Let's really understand which ones are profitable, which ones aren't. I'm very much led by the client now. So when they work with me, I haven't got in my head, we've got 12 months and we're going to do bum, 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 bum. It's what it needs. So for example, I had one client come for profit first. Not everybody comes for profit first initially, but came for profit first. And it was really clear that we just needed to focus on what was cash going to look like between now and January, which was like 3 months' time. Their head couldn't cope with anything else because that was what was stressing them out. That's what we did. And now we're doing profit first once that's out of the way. I've got another client, he's already got a nice sales tracker built. So we've built the model to build onto that rather than creating something separate. So really, I would say I tailor it to what the client wants, what they've already got. I'm not trying to force them into a way of working. They can expect passion from me. I love this. I love the light going on when they can actually understand something or see something. I had someone say, "Oh, I can see my," I think he said something like, "I can see my vision coming to life," or something like that. I mean, I said it made my week. So passion, understand their business, make a real difference to them. And what I would say, which maybe people don't talk about profit first, it can get messy at the beginning because, you know, they're probably in a sticky situation and we're trying to implement something, and there's that transition period can be really sticky. So just keeping them going through that, I think, and adjusting stuff, but then you will suddenly look one day and think, actually, no, this is working now. But that sticky period, and I think probably that's why people would find it really difficult to implement themselves. I think they can set up the pots, they can set up the percentages, but the first month they come to pay a bill and there's not enough in there, it's not very encouraging for them. So I think you need someone through that very sticky bit, definitely.
Absolutely, because that's when, with the experience of being a profit first professional like yourself, you have that moment of, okay, things are, we don't, you know, this isn't the ideal world. Yeah. This is real world. This is what's happened. We can take a reset now. Let's sort out what we need to sort out now and get you through this period. But then we can get you moving again with your profit first journey and move you forward afterwards. Yeah. And a lot of people, if they're not with a profit first professional, would potentially just give up at that point, wouldn't they?
Yeah. And I think it's especially difficult for seasonal businesses.
Yeah.
I'm working with a couple of seasonal businesses now, very different businesses, but they could be the same business when they list their problems. And I think it's especially difficult for them because they get big chunks of money and think, oh, this is good, let's go on holiday. And then they've suddenly got no money and a bill due. So it's particularly tricky for them, I think.
Yeah. But that's the great part of it, isn't it? Having different types of businesses, managing through these issues, it adds to our experience as profit first professionals, so we can help people in different areas. You know, the more and more we do. You also mentioned that you implemented profit first in your own business as you were starting up.
Yeah.
Now that's quite a key question that comes up quite often with people is, do you need to be an established business to implement profit first? So your experience would answer this, but could you give me your answer on that?
So I set it up, and the reason it grabbed me is because of my corporate life. I had always had a nice bonus. I earned a good salary and I had a very nice bonus each February, March. And that was my guilt-free spending for the year. Kept it separate. That was my guilt-free spending. And so when I read this, I thought, I can get a quarterly bonus, because you don't get a bonus when you work for yourself. And so I implemented it, and I remember my first profit quarterly thing, I'm not joking, was something like £3.65 or £1.50. I mean, it would have probably just about bought me a coffee and wouldn't buy me a coffee today, but it didn't matter. It really didn't matter. And I almost think it's easier if you start it from the very beginning, because you obviously generally have a pot of money to set up your business, so you know you're not going to cover all your costs from absolute day one. So I'd got a chunk of money to set up the business. So if you like, you give your OPEX account a head start. And then I followed the rest after, and still to this day, absolutely pay myself my quarterly bonus. And if you see my LinkedIn post on Friday, you will see that I was spending it in London last weekend.
I did see that, actually. I did see that. Yeah. Did you have a nice time?
I had a fabulous day.
Excellent. So another question I'd like to ask you, and there's two sides to this question. So I was going to ask you what Profit First has done for your business, which I think you've kind of just slightly answered that, in fairness. So it might be duplicating the question. But I also like to know what joining Profit First Professionals done for you as a business as well.
Okay. The first one for my own business, I would say buy-to-let has made a massive difference because it just takes the stress out of it. And there's so much, as I say, you don't know what's going to happen with the property one month from the next. And especially for that also, I build up a buffer or a rainy day fund in that. So it means if you've got a property vacant for a while, you've got some cover there, income. So it's made a massive difference on that. On my coaching, Profit First coaching business, I think it's just the way my mind works. It just gives you permission to pay yourself. I think that's really what it does. It gives you permission to pay yourself because you know other stuff is covered. I think uncertainty is the worst thing in a business. So if you've just got a chunk of money and unless you've got the context, you don't know, is that a good amount of money? Is that a bad amount? If it's zero and I've paid myself, paid the tax man, paid everybody else, and I know I've got invoices coming in next week, that's probably fine. It could be 10 grand, but if I've got a 12 grand tax bill, it's no good. So, do you know what I mean? You need the context. So that's the thing. So it takes the stress out of it, gives you permission to pay yourself. Probably the biggest thing for me, it's given me permission to pay myself.
Yeah, and I think we do like to have permission, don't we? It's a strange kind of behaviour trait, but it's just the way that we seem to be built as humans.
I mean, I mentioned uncertainty there in the context when I do work with clients, because most of them I would say are in a stress state when they come to us, is that we do the numbers and I always say to them, right, this is the worst part. Facing the numbers is the worst part. Once we've got them, we can do something about them. But people have got their head in the sand, they're too scared to look at the numbers. But once you do it, you know what you're dealing with, you can have a plan. If you don't look at it, you don't actually know what you're dealing with, and you certainly can't have a plan.
So if anyone's watching this, your suggestion to them would be to be brave. Take that step, have your profit assessment done, see exactly where you're at, because it's not going to change if you don't have that reality in front of you. But don't be scared of it, because that's the starting point, isn't it? And it's moving forward from there that it's going to happen with them. Yeah,
and I like the way you use the word brave there, because I mentioned I worked on this program with people who were just starting businesses for a few years, and they were all so brave. People start a business because they're passionate about something, they leap into it. They start it because they're passionate about candles or bikes or whatever it is, coaching, whatever it is. They don't leap into it. They don't go into it because they want to do their accounts and manage the money. So I think they are brave and they cannot be expected to know everything at all. So I just applaud them. I really do. So it is a brave move and we all need help on something.
Absolutely. And what you've said there, so someone is an expert in making candles and they've got a passion for it, doesn't mean they understand the number side of their business. Same as if I look under the bonnet of my car, I have no idea what's happening under that bonnet. So I would go to a specialist to get it looked at. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's the same principle. So we would say don't be shy to come and talk to our sort of specialist people that are good with numbers, that can help you move your business forward and be more profitable. So what would you say to anybody that was watching? How can they get in contact with you?
Or to get in contact with me, I would say go onto my LinkedIn website or email me, I guess. I don't know how I'll get the email out there. But I've got a website as well. And through the Profit First Professionals site, I'm on there as one of the Profit First Professionals. But I've had a couple of clients recently who've actually found me through LinkedIn. That's great.
Excellent. That's really good. Yeah, LinkedIn is a good place. It's a very good professional sort of basis, isn't it, to show yourself on there. The Profit First website for anyone watching is profitfirstuk.co.uk. Rebecca is shown on there, and her links will be on there for you to click on her profile and be able to click on her links to get in contact with her. Is there anything that, since you joined Profit First Professionals, how's things changed for you, would you say?
Oh, yeah. I didn't answer that question.
That's okay.
So no, why I like being a Profit First Professional is it is really lonely operating a business by yourself. So I don't have anybody else work for me, it is purely me. So I think it's the community that I really like. It is a forum to bounce ideas off, so I've had other people say, have you done the property stuff for people? I could go to others to say, have you done, trades or whatever. So that community and sort of support network. I also get support from someone I consider my coach, Jason, which I value really highly. I think before you start a business, you don't realise you maybe get a coach when you start. When you talk to most people in business, they have got a coach. I don't know whether you've got one, Tim, but it wouldn't surprise me if you have got one. So I think that ongoing development for yourself, especially if you work by yourself, and to have someone to bounce ideas off is really important. So I would say the community and that sort of coach type support is really valuable. And then obviously I do get some leads through it as well. So it's a way of, when you start off, getting some clients as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're a coach, it's good to be coached as well, because we're always developing, we're always learning. It's important that we learn as well as we expect other people to learn. Therefore, we should take on our own lessons as well. So I agree with that. There are leads that come through sometimes. We can't guarantee those leads, but we do get a lot of contacts through our website and through the main Profit First Professionals website in the US. So any UK leads come through to us. So that does help, but we can't guarantee how often they're going to come through because it's out of our control. Rebecca, thank you ever so much. It's been a pleasure. You are, when we're on our group sessions, I will say, you add a lot of value into the community. You're always very willing to share what you're doing. You shared with us how you do things slightly differently with your buy-to-let on one of our group sessions before, and a lot of us were blown away with the way that you do it, actually. I think it's great to highlight that, and people to be aware of that about you as well. So thanks ever so much for coming along. Is there anything you want to add to what we've talked about before we finish off our session?
I think if someone's watching this, I would say two things. If you've got your own business, you're brave because you've made the step and you've set your own business up. I would say that it's never too early to start Profit First. Even like if you haven't got any income yet, let's get set up ready for when you have. And I would say the key message is you are not alone. You really are not. There are lots of businesses, you see people and you think, oh, that looks good. They may just be taking the minimum wage. They might be better off working in Starbucks or somewhere. So don't be fooled that because everybody looks like they're successful, that they're taking the money. You are definitely not alone.
There's lots of areas you can connect with people as well, isn't there? There's events you can go to, networking events, and if that's not your thing, there's lots of places online as well. So reach out to Rebecca. Like I say, go on to profitfirstuk.co.uk. You can see Rebecca on there, and you can click on her links and reach out to her. Rebecca, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's a pleasure having you as part of our community. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks.